Hi, I'm Kathy Smith, and welcome to On Health, the Art of Living, where I bring you the latest research and information on how to live a healthier, more vibrant, more passion-driven life. Okay, to help you better understand the importance of gut health and support your journey to better digestive function, I've invited back by popular demand Dr. Will Bulsiewicz, also lovingly known as Dr. B. And if you missed our last discussion, check out episode 90. It's all about identifying weaknesses in the gut, what habits lead to a poor microbiome, and the role of pre and probiotics, and really some of the valuable information that you can learn when you notice what's coming out your backside, when you notice your poop. It can be very, very powerful. Today, I want to expand on that discussion. The microbiome is this super organism that it's an ecosystem that is arguably the center of human health. We rely on all of these microbes to keep us healthy. And when they fail, we fail. So making peace with your microbiome is one of the biggest steps you can take to improve your health and your well-being. And when you take care of your gut, just about everything else in your body falls into place, from your immune system to your moods, to your brain, to your heart health, because they are all impacted by your gut health. So for many people, it's all about food sensitivities. For some, it's irregular bowel movements. For most, it's just understanding fiber. So when you start to understand fiber, you start to get the picture of how important it is for your gut health. So if you have gut issues and food sensitivities and your goal is to feel better, or you're just curious about exploring a more plant-based eating style, then you're going to want to listen up, because Dr. B is a genius. He's a genius in helping people understand what's going on in your gut. There's kind of this unknown area that we don't think about that much, but when you start to explore it, it's such a fascinating topic. His new book is called the Fiber Fueled Cookbook, and it really puts you on a path to healing and restoring function in your gut. It's a step-by-step program to support your journey to better digestive function. So whether you have gut issues or you just want an outrageously good recipes, this book, you're going to want to go, and it's on pre-sale right now, but you're going to really want to go and pick it up. I want you to know that Dr. B is no ordinary doctor. He's an award-winning gastroenterologist, and he's internationally recognized gut health expert, New York Times bestselling author. His last book, Fiber Fueled, is changing lives around the world. It's a must-read, and he's a rock star. So welcome back, Dr. B.
Kathy Smith, it's such an honor to be here with you today. I feel like that was a mic drop moment by you right there, because you basically just summarized the basics of gut health. And now I'm ready to go beyond that, and let's get into some details.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I wanted to make sure that we didn't just repeat our last, that's why I gave you that intro, that we didn't want to repeat everything that we did in the last episode. I really want people to go back and listen to that. But for the people that just didn't listen and need a quick, 90-second recap, like, why is microbiome like the be all end all to health?
This is transformative science. This is the breakthrough that is occurring right now as we speak, and going to be one of the biggest stories, if not the biggest story, when it comes to human health during our lifetime. And the reason why is because we didn't have the ability to study them 15 years ago. Breakthroughs in laboratory technology, computers that finally caught up and were capable of handling the amount of information that exists, dare I say it, in our poop. And using this information, we then became capable of seeing the big picture, which is that, holy cow, these microbes that live inside of us, 38 trillion of them, they are as alive as you and I are. And as you mentioned, Kathy, they're connected to our digestion, to our immune system, our metabolism, our hormones, our mood, our brain health, our genetic expression. Basically, when you think about everything that's important for human health, I kind of just rattled it off. And yet, here they are, these microbes that are not human, not even a part of our body, kind of pulling the levers and making the decisions in terms of what ultimately happens with our body. So I see it as a moment of empowerment, because we didn't really understand or know anything about these guys until very recently. And now the science is allowing us to take and shape them and allow them to be what we want them to be. They're not stuck. We're not sort of born with this. We get to make this what we want it to be, and that's a beautiful thing.
So it morphs, it changes, and what I'm really fascinated with when it comes to gut health, what I want to talk about today is this idea of how much control we have over it. I mean, how much we can change it, shift it, and it starts with little things, and then it's these habits we developed. And one of the habits is this idea of fiber. And the reason why I want to jump right in with the fibers, because I feel like it's so we underestimate how important it is. We think it's okay, fiber, something we take so that we can eliminate properly. And it's taken me months and years to really understand fiber is so much more than that. So I want to jump into the fiber talk.
Well, I think, it starts with this, that we have an inherent bias towards viewing fiber as the orange drink that our grandmother used to stir so that she could have a bowel movement. And there's this misunderstanding that fiber goes in the mouth and just kind of sweeps through and then comes out the other end in the exact same form that it went in. That's not actually true. The issue is that we humans, as big and as strong and as complicated as we are, we were not born with the enzymes to break down fiber. So if we lived in a completely sterile world, which, by the way, if we lived in a completely sterile world, we actually wouldn't be healthy at all. But if we did, and we had no microbiome, we wouldn't be able to process our fiber. But guess what? These microbes, they have digestive enzymes, like far beyond the capacity that we have as humans. They have the digestive enzymes. They have the ability to break down, process, and digest our fiber. And when they do that, there's a couple of things that take place that are borderline magical from my perspective. It stops being fiber. It becomes food for the microbes, which is why we call it prebiotic. The microbes, which are alive inside of us, they get to eat. They grow stronger. They become more capable of doing their job. And one of the things that they immediately do is they take what is fiber and they transform it. And on the other side, after the microbes are done doing their work, they reward us with what are called short chain fatty acids. These short chain fatty acids are the most anti-inflammatory, most healing molecule that I have discovered in all of my reading over the past 20 years of being a doctor. These are the most anti-inflammatory things that I've ever come across. And we get them by consuming fiber. And this is a very important point because 97% of Americans are not even getting the minimal or recommended amount of fiber in their diet. And we have to change that. And this is to me our most prevalent, most important nutritional deficiency. And it's not getting the attention that some of the other things do.
And so just for the record, how much fiber are you recommending for people on a daily basis? How many grams?
Well, so I will give you the number, Kathy, but then I want to give a caveat after that. So the recommendation, generally speaking, for women is 25 grams of fiber per day. By the way, the average woman in the US is getting about 15 grams of fiber. The average recommendation for a man is about 38 grams of fiber per day. And the average man is getting right now about 18 grams of fiber. So both genders, we're not hitting the mark. We're not where we need to be. We both have some work to do. But I think also, Kathy, this goes beyond grams of fiber. Let's not slip into the trap of thinking that we can just take a fiber supplement and start cranking up grams of fiber by taking a supplement. This is much more than that. This is about the food that we eat. This is about the quality of our diet. And one of the things that I think is very important to acknowledge is that variety is critically important. So I would encourage people, rather than counting grams of fiber, count the number of plants in your diet. Do this at every meal. And when you do this, when you count the number of plants in your meal, you will inherently move towards a more variety-based, diversity-based diet that enhances the gut microbiome and that supports your body with more fiber, and you will accomplish your goals. If you are eating more plants by doing this, trust me, you will get to this number that I'm getting to, but I want you to go beyond this number and I want you to improve your diet. And this is more than just counting grams of fiber.
I totally agree. And since our last time we talked together, that we were together, you threw out that number of 30 different varieties of plants throughout the week, and if you can. And so now it's become a game for me. We've gamified it. And it is amazing when you start to think about all the varieties of plants out there, the colors, the textures, and every week, with my blog, I'm really encouraging people every week, find something else you haven't eaten before. And I've done that over the past 8 months or whatever it's been since we discussed when we talked last time. It's been a huge game changer in my digestive tract. So I'm loving that. Can you? Before I forget about this, and I'm getting off course for a bit here, but in your book, you talk about this idea of gut and COVID, and this I think it was in Gut magazine that came out in January. And I think it's important just to throw things like this out because people, again, forget about the immunity aspect of our gut, and especially in times like this or whenever with viruses going all around. So can you talk a little bit and maybe mention that research study?
Yeah, it's very interesting. There's been a series of studies that, let me lead with this. No one study proves anything.
Right.
All right.
Totally.
At the end of the day, what's important is to be looking at the breadth of the work and to be interpreting sort of the bigger picture that in a perfect world shows multiple studies of multiple different varieties, all pointing in the same direction. That's what we ultimately want. So we want the preclinical data, we want the clinical data, we want the randomized controlled studies, the epidemiology studies, all kind of saying the same thing. And then when we have that, then we can have great confidence that we know what we're talking about. And that's kind of actually what we're seeing when it comes to the relationship between the gut and COVID and the response to COVID. So if we go back to the early days of the pandemic, like March, April, May of 2020, what we were seeing was that there were some people who were getting very, very sick. And there was a very, very large proportion of people who were not getting sick or minimally getting sick. So what separates, these groups of people? What makes one person who's 40 years old crash and burn into the intensive care unit and require a breathing tube to survive versus the person who's like, yeah, I can't believe I had COVID. It was the sniffles. It was nothing. What separates this? And what we have discovered is that it actually probably boils down to these microbes that live inside of us. And you're referring, Kathy, to a paper that came out in January of last year in the journal Gut, which is one of the top 2 gastroenterology journals in the world. It's more of a European journal, but it's one of the top 2. And basically what they showed in this study is that there was a difference between the people who had symptomatic COVID, severe enough to land them in the hospital, and the people who did not. And what they showed in the paper is that as the severity progressed, the changes that were taking place in the gut microbiome became even more pronounced, even more clear. So what were those changes? And what they discovered was that there was a disturbance in the microbiome where there was a loss of the anti-inflammatory healthy microbes. These are actually the microbes that help us to process our fiber. These are the same microbes I was talking a moment about, short chain fatty acids, the most anti-inflammatory molecule. This is what they produce. And we had less of those types of microbes and more of the inflammatory microbes, the ones that actually want to push inflammation to get our body like up into a tizzy. That's what we were seeing taking place in the setting of COVID. And so it started to sort of connect the dots because there was, Kathy, some preclinical research that was already available back in the early days of the pandemic, before we ever even knew what COVID-19 was. There was preclinical research where they would basically take animals, take a mouse and feed it fiber and look at its response to a respiratory virus. And they would see that the mice that were being fed fiber would survive at a far higher rate in terms of respiratory viruses. And when they tracked this and got into the details of what was happening inside the body of these mice, it came back to the gut. The gut microbes were interacting with the fiber in the diet, producing short chain fatty acids. And then the short chain fatty acids were shaping the immune system in the fight against these respiratory viruses, not COVID-19, but respiratory viruses. So we could kind of see the writing on the wall. I actually wrote an editorial that I submitted to the New York Times, and they declined it for reasons that I understand. Back in May of 2020, like it was very early in the game. So and that's why they were not quite ready to accept this. But I wrote an editorial that basically said, like, I think that the plant-based diet is going to end up being the solution. And so we saw this gut article that you're referring to, Kathy, come out in January of 2021. And then guess what? In the summer of 2021, new research comes out that shows that people who are consuming a plant-based diet are less likely to not only be diagnosed with COVID, but also less likely to have moderate to severe COVID-19. And so the whole thing starts coming into focus, where it's like now we have the preclinical studies showing us the effect of fiber on the respiratory viruses. We have the COVID-19 study that shows us that the microbiome is missing the short chain fatty acid producers in people that have severe COVID. And now, finally, the last piece, human research showing us that if you are fueling your gut microbiome with fiber, you are less likely to have moderate to severe COVID-19. One last thing. So like that picture is now complete. There's one more part. This is not just what happens to you acutely when you have COVID-19 and you potentially could get sick. This is also what happens after the fact. One of the biggest concerns in healthcare today is long COVID that lingers for months, potentially a year after you've like basically cleared the virus, but you still have symptoms and you're suffering. What's the difference there? Guess what? Yet again, new research just came out in the last few weeks showing us that COVID-19 that lingers, long COVID, is associated with changes in the gut microbiome. And once again, it's the exact same changes. A loss of the anti-inflammatory short chain fatty acid producing microbes in the gut microbiome. So if I have to make a prediction, Kathy, here's my prediction. I think we're going to see a new study sometime this year that's going to say that by eating a plant-based diet, you reduce the likelihood of having long COVID because it's the exact same pattern that we saw with moderate to severe COVID in the first place.
Okay, so now we're going to go into, there's a doctor in the house and I have to ask you a question because I have my athletic Olympian daughter got COVID in December and she has long COVID maybe, but point being, I was just telling her about an hour ago, okay, I just, had finished your book. I said, okay, we have to talk about this. I mean, she does eat plant-based, and maybe this will segue to the entire audience. She does have plant-based, not vegan, but plant-based. But I think one of the things we need to discuss is the difference between plant-based and this variety aspect, and also close the loop for people on this. I get it because I've heard it over and over again, but fiber gives you this CFAs, the short chain fatty acids, but is it all vegetables give you that? Is there certain vegetables you say, okay, stock up on these vegetables because you'll get more of these short chain fatty acids? Kind of close the loop there on that discussion, as well as come back around to if you are in the long COVID stage, is there anything they're seeing that's except for the recommendation of eat more vegetables? But do we have to go off the charts? Because I guess with plant-based, I see people plant-based, but they might have lettuce, bell pepper, on a salad and some carrots. And then, there could be some chips, and the discussion with that. So I think that not all plant-based is created equal. And maybe we should define that a little bit.
I think this is such an important topic, and I'm very glad that you asked me to bring some clarity to this, because I want people at home who could very easily get confused about these terms to understand this with clarity. So to me, veganism is an ethical choice. And that is the decision that you're going to exclude animal products in their entirety from your diet because you are concerned about the environment or animal welfare. That is an ethical choice. Now, what's left over is devoid of animal products, but it could be many different things. And that could include junk food, right? Oreos are vegan. You could eat Oreos all day and call it a vegan diet. That ain't a healthy diet. And calling a vegan diet inherently healthy, that's not necessarily true, because there are many forms of a vegan diet. Again, the motivation for a vegan diet is not health. The motivation is that you have these beliefs, which I think are great, but it's about the animals, it's about the environment, and it's a selfless choice. But it's okay to be selfish when you're talking about your health. That's okay. And that's where the plant-based diet comes in. A plant-based diet means that you are placing an emphasis on plants, and that can come in many different varieties. Now, let me just say something, Kathy. We like to apply terms to people's diets, right? We want to define it by like one word: keto, paleo, vegan, plant-based. Like, we just want to apply one word, yet we're far more complicated than that. And I find that exercise to be a little bit sort of unnecessary, because at the end of the day, I want every single person who's listening to you and I right now to find a diet that they love, that brings them joy, but also that makes them feel great and doesn't require them to make compromises about their health. And that's where, to me, a plant-based diet comes in. A plant-based diet is making the choice that you're eating for your own health. And it can come in many forms. If I say plant exclusive basically is a vegan diet, except, again, this is whole foods. You're not eating Oreos on a plant exclusive diet. Plant predominant can be many forms. A paleo diet could be plant predominant. But the point is that you're making a decision. Look, I want to eat more plants, 70%, 80%, 90%, whatever it may be. And for me, it's about the direction. It's about the journey. This is not about like defining who you are and whether it's right or whether it's wrong. That's nonsense, right? This is about, where are you today? And what are the steps that we can take to get you moving in the right direction? That's what I care about. And I can assure you, if you think you have a bad diet, I was worse. All right. I was a fast food diet. And I was less than 10% plants. So it's not about, to me,
wreck. And your book, when you were in med school, your weight. I mean, that's why to look at you now and to see you when you're dancing. I love your energy and your joy. And one of the things, when I took your 6-week gut health program, are you still teaching it? Are you still offering that? Or not? It's
coming in the summer.
Yeah. Okay. So I recommend anybody, we'll talk about in liner notes, but I went through Dr. B's 6-week program. And is it 6 or 8? Whatever it is, it's a program, and it was remarkable. And what I loved about it is all of these concepts, which can get overwhelming when you get them all at once. And what I like is bite size. Every week you're learning a little something. You get together at the beginning of the week for a group chat with everybody, and you learn so much from other people's questions and your responses, obviously. But the big thing is you start every session off with a song and a dance and just getting that energy up. So you have this energy around gut health, and I love that you're not, you're accepting where people are at, and because it is this journey. I mean, and one of the things I do want, because I know we don't have tons of time, I want to switch over in a second to this idea of people who do have problems going to a plant-based diet because of food intolerances or food sensitivities, that sort of thing. And they eat too much fiber and they go, oh, I thought this was going to make me feel better, but right, I'm actually feeling worse. So, right, and how you can actually train your gut to shift that into a more fiber-friendly mode. But is there anything you else wanted to wrap up on the long COVID, the short chain fatty acids, or anything there? Do you think we've closed that loop? Was there anything else? Because I kind of interrupted you.
Well, no, that's okay. I think that at the end of the day, what we really want is we aren't in a place where we have like shortcuts on how to manage long COVID to make it good for everyone. I wish we were. I think that at the end of the day, what you want is to build your shield and let that day start today. Don't wait until you have COVID to start figuring this out. Work on your health and moving your health in the right direction. And again, I'm all about progress over perfection. So every step in the right direction, we should celebrate. That's what I'm about.
Brava. especially on my website. That's my motto: progress, not perfection, especially with food and exercise. So, but let's switch over to all the people. And again, so many questions when we reached out to our Facebook group on what they want to hear about or talk about. And I know you talk a lot about it in your course. Is this idea that when you do have intolerances, it's gluten or lactose or these other food sensitivities, and also just eating more fiber. Some people start to eat fiber and they just feel like they're going to explode. So do you want to go down a little bit of how do you transition to a more fiber-based diet?
I am more than happy to. So, my general philosophy when it comes to the gut and introducing new foods, whatever that food may be, is that you have to train your gut. And so whatever it is that you have been eating, that's what your gut is designed for. And just like exercise, just like going into the gym, you want to build up strength. And you have a starting point. And that starting point may be a position of weakness. There may be foods that you quite simply struggle with. Just like going to the gym on January 1st and you haven't been working out. And guess what? Like, you might get sick if you run too hard, right? So the point is that we want to introduce and implement this dietary change progressively, slowly over time. You start low with a new food. You go slow as you ramp it up. This allows your body an opportunity, your gut, to adapt to what you're doing, to grow stronger, to become fortified. You're building strength in the same way that you would build muscle in the gym. And Kathy, to just go a little beyond this, my new book coming out May 17th, the Fiber Fueled Cookbook, is far more than a cookbook. It's actually a protocol, a methodology for people who are suffering with food intolerances. And what I consider to be my biggest contribution from this book is something called the growth strategy, GROWTH. So I just want to run through this real quick to tell people what they are. It's a preview, and I'm more than happy to come back anytime with you, my friend, and we can continue the conversation about this. But growth is sort of my philosophy when it comes to your diet. I want you to have abundance, not restriction. But growth in this case is an acronym. It's our approach to food intolerances. And it breaks down like this. G stands for genesis. What is the genesis of your symptoms? If I see a patient in the clinic, the first question in my mind is, what am I treating? That should be the first question for you. What are we treating? We have to know that if we really want to get it better. ROW, I put them together. They're like a package. They're like in a dance together all at once. ROW, restrict, observe, work it back in. If you want to know what foods are causing trouble for you, a blood test, a poop test, a breath test is not going to answer this question for you. Science has not gotten there yet. What will answer this question for you is if you restrict the food, you observe how you feel, and then you work it back in and you see exactly how you feel. And this will tell you, okay, gosh, I am having trouble with these gluten-containing foods, or I am having trouble with dairy, or whatever it may be. It will help you to isolate and identify where the problems exist. And when you do that, you're empowering yourself with knowledge. Once you get to that place, it's time to train your gut. And it's like you and I were just talking about. Low and slow is the tempo. You introduce these foods slowly. You give your body a chance to adapt. And over time, you will be able to grow, get stronger, and become capable of processing foods that you didn't think you were capable of doing. And the last thing is a simple reminder. H stands for holistic health. Let's not lose sight of what's happening with you and your body. You are not just a bunch of digestive enzymes, right? You are not just a bunch of microbes. I can't just do a poop test. Like, you are a whole person. You are more complicated. It's a beautiful thing. And so let's not lose sight of the fact that your mood, your emotions, your relationships, whether or not you got sleep last night, your exercise patterns, your movement, all of these different factors, they all ultimately have an effect on your ability to digest your food, and your relationship with your food is very important too. So growth strategy, genesis, restrict, observe, work it back in, train your gut, holistic health. That's actually what the Fiber Fueled Cookbook is going to be all about. And yes, it'll also have 125 recipes, but the recipes actually are part of the protocol.
And that sweet potato boat that you that opens up your book is like awesome, which I can't wait to make it. I've made a couple of the recipes already. It's unbelievable. But the 1, 2, 3, restrict, observe, work it back in, and is such a great approach because it seems like it allows you to find out for where your threshold is for a lot of these foods. Like a lot of times you don't have to, as you mentioned in the book, you don't have to eliminate a food completely, but you might have to find out where your threshold is for it. Do I have that accurate?
You do. And it's an important point because food intolerances ultimately are about thresholds. So there is a certain amount that you are capable of tolerating. I mean, let's take a person who has lactose intolerance, right? And they can't consume dairy. I can put a drop of milk on their tongue. They're not going to have diarrhea from that, right? But the question is, what is the threshold? And it may be far less than a glass of milk for that individual person. So what I'm talking about here is your unique body, your unique biology. Like, I can't create a one-size-fits-all diet. That's not possible. You are too unique for me to do that. But what I can do is I can empower you with the methods, the approach that will allow you to discover what works for your personal body and to personalize. And that's what I'm trying to do with this book.
Well, I read it cover to cover, looked at all of the recipes and started making a few of them. And the one last thing I want to touch upon, because I don't understand as well, and I think maybe it could be insight to our listeners, which is this histamine intolerance. Can you explain what is histamine and what foods trigger histamine responses and what we should be looking for?
Yeah, so I think that this is going to be a game changer for a lot of people. And there's a challenge that exists in healthcare when it comes to this specific diagnosis. It's not that the diagnosis doesn't exist or it's made up. It's completely real. And there are people who are listening to me right now who, like, this may change their life. But the challenge is that in order to discover whether or not you have histamine intolerance, you need a proper dietary approach. And your doctor doesn't have the ability to do that. So what is histamine? Histamine is a part of our body. It's a signaling molecule, which is involved in very important parts of human health. Like, we can't vilify it and call it horrible because when we're healthy, histamine is in there. But it's like anything in excess is problematic. And there are people who suffer with histamine intolerance, which in many cases starts in the gut and is the result of a damaged, injured gut. And as a result of this, when they eat certain foods, examples of this include fermented foods. So, like, not just sauerkraut, but that would include alcohol or vinegar, yogurt. When they consume fermented foods, they may get a reaction that causes them to have any of a number of many symptoms throughout their entire body. The most common symptom is bloating. So if you have a chronic bloating issue, you should be listening up right now. The most common symptom is bloating, but it can include, like, literally a runny nose. You ever get a runny nose after a meal? Could be a headache after a meal, like a migraine headache. Could be diarrhea, constipation, changes in your bowel habits. Could be a rash, hives. Could be you get a rapid heart rate. There are many different possibilities that are the result of histamine because we have histamine receptors throughout our entire body. So how do we approach this complex issue? There is no blood test. This is why it's very hard for doctors. What you need to actually reduce your histamine intake for about 2 weeks and see how you feel. Now, if you do this, you reduce your histamine intake for 2 weeks and you notice, gosh, I feel awesome. We're on to something.
Yeah.
We are now empowered and we can work towards making this better because you are not stuck living this way. We can heal this. And that's what the book is about. Real quick, most plant-based foods are not high in histamine. Most are not. But there are some that are. And so that's part of what we play upon in the book. And the recipes are designed to be low histamine when you get to this protocol. So spinach, eggplant, tomatoes, and I hate to admit it, but avocados.
I was going to say avocado. When I read avocado, I thought, no, don't take my avocado.
It breaks my heart. Yeah. So it breaks my heart. But what you do is, it doesn't mean that you eliminate these foods for the rest of your life. I'm never about that. What it means is that you do your 2-week low histamine protocol, which is provided by the book. You see how you feel, right? Restrict, observe, work it back in. And then we're going to go through a process of getting these foods back on the menu. It just may take some time in terms of healing.
Okay, so why do you think your poop should be your fifth vital sign? Is that what you said in the book, that we should be looking at that as maybe our fifth vital sign?
This is so important. And it's like the stigma around poop is standing in the way of us having an honest conversation about how important this actually is. Right. So it's like poop jokes that are, I have a 5-year-old son. Like, this is all day long. This is what he wants to talk about. Right. So that stands in the way of us being able to have like a real frank conversation about human health. Your gut microbiome is so important. You said it off the top in the lead, Kathy, connected to digestion, immune system, metabolism, our hormones, our mood, our brain health. Like, it all comes back to this one place. And what is the single most clear indicator of the health of our gut microbiome that we can take without doing, blood testing or poop testing or stuff like that? Like, what can we collect information on literally at home for free? You can look at your bowel movement.
Every day. I mean, that's it.
Every day.
I mean, it's just an indicator for me, like what, how was my eating yesterday? How were my stress levels? How much caffeine did I have? How much water did I drink? I mean, it all is kind of reflected right there, and I can make adjustments day by day, which is what I love about it.
It's 100% true. And so, what do we want to look for? Well, there's a number of different things as a gastroenterologist. This is not just the frequency. But how often you go is something that I would look at if I were seeing you in the clinic. And also, you want to look at the form, the shape. So there's something called the Bristol Stool Scale, which is in the book.
About on the last episode, which I will, four. I think 4 is like what you're shooting for. But one of the questions that came in was floaters or sinkers. Is there something you need to talk about? Is one better than the other? There's something that's
well. Yeah, so I think with that, so I actually, it's a question of intrigue that many people have. Like, my poop is floating. What does that mean? And it may mean nothing, but we have to look at the bigger picture. So are there other associated symptoms that may indicate a bigger problem? Like, are you seeing fat or oil in the toilet water? Because that may indicate that you have a malabsorption issue. Are you having diarrhea and loose stool on a chronic basis? So if you have a change in your bowel movements, in addition to the stool floating, or if there's another change in the color, something like that, those would be potential reasons to talk to your doctor about what's going on.
Okay. Well, I'll let you go. And thank you again. I'm going to wrap up the show and let everybody know where they can find you, your last book, your new book, and your 6-week program. And I have to tell you, we adore you, and I hope you keep coming back.
I adore you. I'll come back anytime you invite me. It's an honor to be here with you. And I enjoy the fast pace of the show and recognize that there's so much more to these conversations. So, to everyone who's at home, just continue to tune in with both Kathy and I, and we'll keep teaching you everything we can give you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. It was such a pleasure having Dr. B on the show. He is such a rock star. Dr. B's New York Times bestselling book, Fiber Fueled, and the Fiber Fueled Cookbook are must-reads. They're full of step-by-step approaches that show simple, science-backed processes for optimizing your gut microbiome. And when you optimize your gut, you optimize your health, and you can transform your health. So to learn more about everything Dr. B is up to, visit him on Instagram at The Gut Health MD, or check out his website, theplantfedgut.com. I want to give a shout out to the folks listening who are part of the Reshape program. If you don't know about Reshape, it's my new app that takes the stress out of losing weight and getting healthy. This revolutionary new app is what I like to say, the future of fitness, because it's 3 parts. It's got fit body, fit minds, and fit meals. And all of these work together synergistically to help you maximize your energy, help slow down the aging process, and help you achieve optimum weight. Reshape includes all my workouts. It includes a personalized food plan that's not only a traditional protein, but a plant-based protein for every single meal. So remember, as you are trying to transition to more plants, it's not a one size fits all, and it's about progress, not perfection. And that's why I love Reshape. It allows you to take meal by meal. How can you take your breakfast, your lunch, your dinners, and your snacks and start to add more plants to each of them? Terrific recipes are in there, terrific, just terrific ways to balance blood sugars throughout the day, to eat in a way that really sustains good health. And there's another section where there's powerful mindful sessions like motivation, focus, dream time, each of them 10 to 15 minutes that will help set the stage for kind of bringing the best out of you. You can try it for free if you go to kathysmith.com/reshape. Now, remember, if you enjoyed the episodes, love you to go and join me on Instagram at Kathy Smith Fitness. I always look forward to connecting to everybody. And as another quick reminder, don't forget, take these podcasts out on your walk. I love to learn as I'm walking. I call it walk and talk. I'm talking, you're walking. We get to buddy up. You're burning calories. I'm helping you learn something by interviewing people. It's a great way to just keep the mind going, keep the body going. And as you go through, don't forget that whenever you want to leave a review, I always love those reviews because they're the bread and butter for people like myself who do podcasts. So really appreciate if you can just jump on and leave a review. And big shout out to everybody that at the Fit Over 40 group. I love you all. I love reading all your comments. Here's to your health. Stay healthy. Bye, you guys.